And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I am J.C. Kenney. And folks, we have a super special guest for you today. I grew up. My mom was a huge mystery fan. My dad was a huge thriller fan. I grew up among the books of Dick Francis, and we are so fortunate to have his son visiting us today. I can't wait for this, for you all to get to meet him. Sarah, I think it's time to get bookish.
Yes, we have a super special guest who is a
Yes,
superstar with us today. Felix Francis is a legend in his own right. Your
yes.
uh, your work has been so prolific, so engaging, so thrilling. We are so excited to be able to talk about your world building, your characters, how you've accumulated all of this amazing knowledge about horse racing. You take two of my very favorite things, horses and murder mysteries, and weave them together into these exciting tales. The horse girl in me is just like going crazy right now. But Felix, thank you so much for being here and for coming to us across the pond, because you are joining us
Yes.
over in the UK, which is very exciting.
Well, it's lovely to be here, Sarah and Jim. It's very special for me too. I'm sitting here in the dark now in England and the rain. It's past 5 o'clock, so I've also
Of
got a glass
course.
of wine.
Cheers.
Here we go.
Cheers.
We have so
You,
much to be able to cover today with you, Felix,
yes.
and so much that we want to dive into. But as our viewers who are settling into the chat, we have Farmhouse Reader saying good afternoon to everybody and is very excited that you're here as well. Tell us a little bit, by way of introduction, as to how, obviously you were exposed to this like wonderful world of crime thrillers through the work that both your father and your mom did, working and researching together to create these wonderful stories. You went off to university and became a physics teacher. So how does a physics teacher go from teaching to like writing these amazing, heart-racing stories?
Well, I grew up in what I consider to be the greatest fiction factory of the 20th century. I was 9 years old when my father's first book was published.
Oh, wow.
Back in 1962, and he delivered one book every year for the rest of the millennium. So I grew up reading them and living the life of being inside fiction, and also horse racing was very much involved. And my father, before he was a writer, was a steeplechase jockey. He was champion jockey. He rode for the Queen and the Queen Mother in England. So you might say that people ask me what it's like to have a famous father, but I don't know what it's like not to, because my father was champion jockey the year I was born. But how, I mean, I wasn't that keen on riding. I did a lot
Mhm.
of riding as a child, but I had a lot of hip trouble when I was 14, spent a long time in hospital, and it stopped me riding, but it didn't stop me going to the races. And I loved watching the horses. And as you say, I studied physics and became a physics teacher. People say, how can you be an author with when you've got a physics background? But I reckon that physics is the study of the unseen world, whereas geography is the study of the seen world. Physics is the study of the great invisibilities of life, like gravity and electricity and magnetism and all the things you can't see, like radioactivity. And therefore, you need some imagination in order to be able to teach it and to understand it. But how I became a writer is really an accident. I'd given up teaching. I became a businessman, and I also managed my father. And back in 2005, my father's literary agent had lunch with me. It wasn't unusual. I'm managing my father, so we had lunch fairly often. And he said, Felix, we have a problem. He said that all your father's books are going to go out of print. I mean, what kept me awake at night as a child was reading the adventure stories of Alistair MacLean and Desmond Bagley and Neville Shute and all those wonderful stories, and they'd all gone out of print. And the same was about to occur for my father, and that was a problem. Indeed, it was a problem because, I'd hoped that it would give him a pension for the rest of his life, and with a bit of luck, it would give me one too. But that clearly wasn't going to happen. So the agent said, "What we need is a new hardback to stimulate the backlist sales." And I looked at the agent and I said, "Are you crazy? My mother and father did them together. My mother's been dead for 5 years, and my father is now 85, and his memory was not as good as it was. And you need a good memory to write a book, as Sarah, I'm sure you know."
Yeah.
And the agent said, "No, what I'm asking you is whether you would consider having a Dick Francis novel written by an established crime writer." Well, I'd written bits of Dick Francis books for years, all the scientific bits and the meteorology and in Second Wind and so on like that. So, and I must have had a few glasses of my favorite tipple by then. So I said, "Well, before you ask anyone else, I would like to have a go." And to his eternal credit, he didn't laugh or even raise his eyebrows. He said, "I'll give you 2 months to write 2 chapters." So I went and wrote the 2 chapters and I sent them in to him. They were long chapters. They ended up being 4 chapters in the book. And I sent them in and we had another lunch and he said, "Well, there's 2 things you've got to do, Felix. One, you better finish it. And secondly, you better talk to your father," which was far more difficult than the first one. And I said to Dad, "We need a new hardback." And he said, "No." And I said, "It could be a book with Sid Halley in, because Sid Halley had been in 3 before." "No," he said. Little did he know I was writing a Sid Halley book. And eventually I said, "I've got a title." And he said, "What title?" I said, "Under Orders." And, a good book for race fixing, and under orders means under starters orders in racing. So I finished the book. Dad got very excited by it. He read it and it came out as a Dick Francis novel, didn't have my name on it anywhere. I wasn't allowed to say that for 8 years because of the contract,
Really?
but now I can. And of course, it sold. It had Dick Francis on the title. It went to the top of the bestseller list. And I thought all the reviewers would say, "Dick has lost it." But they didn't. They all said, "The master is back." And the publisher said,
Yes.
right, we want another one. So I set off writing the second one. And now I'm in 20 years, I'm writing my 20th. So I now consider myself a full-time author.
That is
Goodness.
fantastic. That is what an absolute wonderful story. I'm sorry, I'm just going to spend the next 22 minutes gushing because this is just so fantastic.
Well, this is Dark Horse, and you will see that across the bottom it has a Dick Francis novel because we all now feel that Dick Francis is a brand rather than an individual. And certainly my name's got bigger and his name's got smaller. But nevertheless, I feel he is as much a part of my books as I feel a part of all his. I mean, this is my 19th, and I thought I'd done really well on 19, and I'm writing number 20 at the moment, until I realized that my parents together did 38. So I'm only halfway there.
Oh.
Hey,
And to catch them up at 1 book a year, I'll be 93 by the time I get there.
That is a challenge. But what a goal to have. And I mean, the fact that I would be curious, Felix, what was it about Sid Halley that was like, what about him was the protagonist that called to you so much? Because,
The first book, Under Orders, I wrote, it was, I don't like to say this, but I was going to pass it off as a Dick Francis novel, and it seemed easier to use an existing character. As it happens, I've used him. He appears in Dark Horse, and I've now used him 4 times since, so including that. So he's been around a bit. I mean, Sid is very lucky because he doesn't age as quickly as the rest of us. He was in his 30s back in 1965 when he first appeared in Odds Against, and now he's only in his late 50s. So he must have some elixir of life, which the rest of us would love to have.
Yeah.
But most of the books, of course, have a separate character. And my father always used to say that he had to produce a new character because he had to find a way of filling up the pages. If you use the same character every time, you couldn't. And also, they're all standalone, so you don't have to read them in order. If you do read them in order, that's great. But if you don't, you don't have to, because most of the characters are separate anyway and different. They all have one thing in common, and that is they all have something to do with horses. I mean, the books are not about horses, I hasten to add. They're about people. They're just racing is simply the canvas against which I paint the story. And it's a great canvas, you know. It's very competitive. There's lots of money floating around. There's always people trying to get an edge, you know, trying to by fair means or foul, mostly by foul means in my books, I have to say. It's a wonder, and also everyone goes racing. I mean, in this country, everyone from the King goes to Royal Ascot. The late Queen Elizabeth II was hugely involved in breeding of horses. So everyone goes racing from royalty right down to the man in the street, and it's a wonderful canvas against which to paint the storylines. I mean, I did say to my publisher, if I wrote a book which didn't have racing in it, would you still publish it? And the response was, well, yes, we will, but we'd rather you didn't. So, and the latest book I'm writing at the moment, my main character is an art dealer, and the book opens with him being accused of selling a fake Sir Alfred Munning's picture. So, but it's still got some racing in it. So everyone I hope will be happy.
So, oh yeah, there's no doubt about that they'll be thrilled. So, one of the things that I'd be curious about, could you talk to us a little bit about Sid? Because one of the things that I found really interesting in reading some of the books is that Sid's on his second career. To your point, he started out as a jockey, got hurt, and couldn't do that anymore. So, for those who may not be very familiar with Sid, could you tell us a little bit about him?
Well, Sid is very bright. I like having bright protagonists, but he left school at age 15. My father left school age 15, so it was because he had other things to do, and he wasn't that keen on his schoolwork. My grandfather used to say, you can learn more on the back of a horse, boy, than you can in a classroom. So that was what my father took as gospel. But Sid actually was in the first appearance was in Odds Against. He was a jockey who had got badly injured. His left hand had been so badly injured it was unusable, and as a sort of a little bit of charity, really, he'd been taken on at an investigative agency, and the book developed, and the storyline, and really that was really meant to be the only time that Sid would appear. But back in 1978, the British television ran a series called The Racing Game, which was based on Odds Against and more stories, and so my father was cajoled into writing a new book for about Sid Halley, which was called Whip Hand, and Whip Hand actually won both the Gold Dagger from the Crime Writers Association in England, and the Edgar Allan Poe Award for the best mystery in the United States. And it's only one of two books to ever have done that. And the other one was The Spy That Came In From the Cold by John le Carre. So it's in good company. Sure. And then really people just said to my father over and over and over again, bring back Sid, bring back Sid. And there'd been 15 years between the first two appearances, and there was another 15 years between the first two, and there was another 15 years until he brought it back again with Come to Grief, and that also won an Edgar Allan Poe Award as best mystery novel. So Sid, and then when I started writing, this first book was I was writing a Dick Francis novel, and it was easier to have Sid, and then Sid came back in Refusal. He came back in Hands Down, and he's back again in Dark Horse. And I mean, I won't say I won't use him again, but it'll be a few years, I think, before Sid is back. But I feel like when I start writing about Sid, it's like putting on an old glove. You know, it fits so well and it's comfortable, and I know what he's thinking. He's a reluctant investigator. I don't write murder. I don't write detective stories as such. I don't write police procedurals. Most of my characters are accidental investigators. You know, they are normal people in who are trying to negotiate abnormal times. So that's the way it worked. I mean, I always start when I'm writing a book to first thing I want is what my character does for a living. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've learned more about art in the last 4 months than I'd ever known before, and I've spent time watching people spending huge amounts of money at auction houses, and I now visit art galleries, and you absorb the information, and it's fascinating for me. I mean, I would be bored if I wrote the same character who was a detective in every book. I mean, not to say that my good friend Peter James doesn't do a great job with his characters, and the late great the Colin Dexter who wrote the Morse books. But for me, it's what makes it exciting is having a different person and a different viewpoint, and of course in Dark Horse the first half of the book is written from the point of view of a woman, which was quite a change for me. I've done it once before in Pulse, and I'll tell you a funny story about that. I didn't. The character's name was Dr. Chris Rankin, and it was only at the end of the second chapter that you realised that Chris Rankin was actually Christine Rankin, not Christopher Rankin. When the character says that the character has an appointment with her gynecologist, so that was I made very sure that the blurb on the inside cover of the book didn't mention anything about her, because I wanted that to be a surprise as well.
Oh, that's a very tricksy way of weaving words. And I love that notion of, how you keep your writing fresh and exciting for you is creating these new characters whose minds you need to get into. I think that one thing that JC and I have learned through doing this show is that all of these wonderful creatives have such a unique way of approaching each project that they work on. So it's really exciting to kind of hear your process.
I think the approach mostly is panic. Panic first that you get it finished in time, and you have some sort of idea of a story, and most important panic is that whether anyone's going to like it or not.
But it's good to have
Touch wood, it's working so far. So
yes, it is.
As they say in writing, you're only as good as your next book.
Yes, but having that fire, I think, underneath you, it heightens, it makes everything, it puts it on the line. And you had mentioned, Felix, about how you have used, or the way that you explain physics as the unseen world, gravity, magnets, electricity. All of those to me sound like really good ways to murder somebody. So I'm wondering, do you have like a favorite style or realm or process for finding your victims in your novels? Is there one that you're always like, oh, I really love it when I use poison, or I really love it when I use a knife? Because I always find that very intriguing.
Well, certainly, if you're going to set a book in England, it's more difficult to use a gun than it is in the States.
Yes.
So knives obviously are useful in that respect. But they're not all. I mean, I don't always have a murder. I mean, there's not. I mean, they're called murder mysteries, but they're not. There's not always a murder. I've written a few books without murder, and in one of them, I had a character who was a an army officer. The book was called Crossfire, and it starts off in Afghanistan, and he loses the bottom of his leg in an explosion, and he's a trained killer, and there were quite a few corpses appeared during that book, but none of them as a result of the trained killer. And it was my little joke that the trained killer was the one person who didn't actually kill anybody. So, and I mean, I don't want to give a spoiler about Dark Horse, but there is a murder in Dark Horse, and of course it starts off with a young Irish steeplechase jockey who wins a big race at Cheltenham, but she is in the process of breaking up or trying to break up with her a very coercive and controlling boyfriend. And the idea came because you see, sadly, all too often we see on the television and the news stories of women being murdered by partners and ex-partners. And indeed, the majority of female murders, certainly in this country and in the United States, are perpetrated by an ex-intimate partner or a current intimate partner. And this was something I wanted to incorporate and investigate within my novel. So there is a murder and a court case and a trial, but I'm not going to say too much about it because I don't want to give away too many stories because and some of the reviews have given away too much in my view. But it was an interesting angle and an interesting take, and of course knives were involved in that. But yes, I mean, interesting ways of killing people. I mean, I can remember my wife and I sitting in a restaurant in Melbourne, Australia, and I was in the middle of writing a book, and we were having quite a heated discussion between the two of us on how to kill somebody, and the method we were going to incorporate. Well, I was going to incorporate, but I bounced ideas off her. And we suddenly realized that everyone around us had gone quiet and they were just listening to how we were going to murder someone. I've always thought that, I don't know, you don't have Argas in America, you know, the ranges which are continuously hot. But I've always thought of the idea of having someone using an Arga to apply. Well, I won't necessarily say fatal injury, but injury to someone in order to get them to talk.
To talk,
And
yeah.
so there are all these things. I mean, when I was a schoolboy, over the breakfast table, my parents would be discussing, and they wouldn't discuss, you know, who was taking the children to school this morning. It would be more whether Sid Halley could survive the night with a 38 slug in his guts. And how much explosive does it take to blow up an aeroplane? And things like this. You mustn't say that too loudly. I'll get into trouble. But, you know, it was, I mean, I grew up in what my mother always called, you know, the family firm. It was the family firm. It was a cottage industry, she used to say, without the cottage. My brother was a racehorse transport, ran a racehorse transport business, and he was in driving force. In Twice Shy, there was a physics teacher. My uncle was a wine importer. He was in Proof. My cousin is an architect. He was in Damage. I mean, there was just so many. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I had the most wonderful childhood. And my father used to, when I was at boarding school, my father used to write me letters, and they would start off with telling me what he'd done, and then they would turn into stories. And I mean, sadly, I haven't got any of them anymore, but it was just great.
Oh my gosh, that just sounds magical. And what a like yeah, what a way to experience the world.
Oh,
The
You're never quite sure. You're never quite sure what's fact and what's fiction, though.
That
Let
I
me
guess
tell you.
that could be true. We actually, Felix, we have some questions from our audience members in the chat right
Yes.
now that I'd like to get your take on. We have Regina who is asking, is your writing routine similar to your father, or do you have a completely different routine? So when you were, you know. Helping him research and collaborating together versus now that you're working solo, what was that routine looking like?
Well, my regime is that I'm not a very good early starter. Um, if I'm writing by 9:30, it's a very good day. I mean, what I do is the first thing I do is I read what I wrote yesterday and make corrections and changes, and then I write. Excuse me, I write through from about 9:30 in the morning till about 6 at night,
Oh wow.
and if it's going well, I will go on till 6. If it's not going so well, I will pack up a little earlier. My aim is to write 1,000 words a day, but I don't really very often write 1,000 words a day. But the closer I get to deadline, the more the more words get written. But I never know what the end is when I start. I have a good idea for a beginning, and then I write the beginning, and the characters take over. I mean, I've often said, what is more important, characters or plot? Well, the answer it's like asking what makes a marriage. What's more important, the bride or the groom? Well, all the ladies in Regina, you would say that the bride is more important, but you need both in order to create a marriage. And I feel that my characters are very important. I mean, one book I wrote was about a bookmaker in England, and this man keeps coming and looking at him and keep looking at him. And he keeps telling him to go away. And in the end, he says, "What do you want?" And the man says, "I'm your father." And now he'd been told his father had been killed in a car accident when he was 1. And suddenly his father appeared. So they go off and they have a drink together at the end of the day. It's happened at Royal Ascot. And then they're walking. He's going to give his father a lift. So he walks out to the car park and someone comes along and kills his father. So
Oh,
it just seemed like a good idea at the time. So he'd found his father and then he'd lost him again, and that was enough incentive to try and find out why. Because if you've got an amateur detective, someone who gets thrown into a situation, you have to give them the incentive to do the investigating. I mean,
Yes.
otherwise you just call the police. But you have to have an incentive to find out why. And that is something that's always in my mind is to make it sound like it's realistic, and that I like to I hate reading books where you think, oh, ridiculous, but so I won't mention the one I often mention when I'm talking because it's going out to too many people, but. There are some books where the whole basis of the storyline is a bit dodgy, and I try and keep away from that. But as I say, it's mostly fear and panic of not getting it finished, which keeps my nose to the grindstone.
Keeps that routine in line.
yes.
JC and I can both sympathize with that, the struggle to make the incentive to investigate the mystery, because we both write amateur sleuth novels,
Yeah.
and being able to convince our reader that yes, this person that lives in a small town and has, runs a small shop, like they are going to take this on themselves, and weaving that in and making that as believable as possible. Regina also
What do
has
you mean as believable? It is believable.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
it is.
That's how we approach it.
Yeah.
We also have Regina asking. She has discovered the Dick Francis thriller TV movies. So there are some
Oh, yes.
movies that or there are some of works that have been made into film. Do you know? Are there more plans for that to occur over the years, or what's
Well,
your feeling on seeing those characters brought to life?
we had one film, theatrical release film, done in 1974, and it was of my father's first book, Dead Cert, and it was suffice to say that it was not as good as it could have been. It was actually had Judi Dench starring in it, and
Wow.
it had Tony Richardson as the director. When Tony Richardson died, the Times said they listed every film he'd ever directed, and it didn't have Dead Cert in the list. So it tells you a lot about it. But the American thriller, there were three of those, and they were okay, but I wouldn't say that they got into the depth of what the book is. I mean, some films and books are wonderful, but the wonderful thing I love about a book is it gives you the time and the depth of the characters, and I don't think they did that. But and they didn't make any more, so they couldn't have been that wonderful, could they? But I'm working on it. In fact, I had lunch with a TV producer on Tuesday. Of course, I'd loved to see my books as films, and I live in hope that will come about. But I write the books
Fingers crossed
for
for
the
you.
book's sake rather than for the
Yes.
film's sake.
That's
There we go.
amazing.
So we'll keep hope
Yes.
alive for that.
Although I think I apologize. I feel like the fingers crossed, isn't that like a vulgar sign in the UK? So maybe we won't do that, but that's us wishing you good luck. I don't know. There's like different hand signs that.
It's the fingers crossed like that,
Okay.
which is all right.
Okay,
That's
all right.
all right.
That's what we're sending those thoughts and those hopes your way,
Thank you.
because
Well,
that would be.
Well, I'm receiving them all, and I will try my best. It's
Do
not
you-
from lack of trying.
Do you have this is the final question from Regina, and then will have to wrap up because our time together flew by so quickly. Regina would like to know if you were to get this, to see your books come to film or TV, do you have anybody in mind, like a cast? Who would you like to see portray Sid, or who would you like to see some faces fill the roles of these characters?
I think that's a very dangerous thing for an author. I can remember friends. I'm a friend of Lee Childs and Jack Reacher, the Jack Reacher books, and I have friends of mine who stopped reading them when Tom Cruise was cast. And as Lee said, if they come to tell you that they've got an actor to play Jack Reacher, who in the book is a large, 6'4" tall, and so Tom Cruise like. But if they come and tell you that they've got Tom Cruise to play your character, you're not going to say no, now are you? So, Tom, whenever you want, I'm ready for you to play Sid. Okay,
I love
Is
it.
that good enough?
That is
There we go.
perfect. Oh my goodness. Gosh, Felix, this has been, a true delight. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for brightening our afternoon. I know the
And
sun
for
is
me-
set.
and for me too. And I'll drink to that. Okay.
Yeah, this was, your stories, not only, your life story, the stories that you tell in your books, they're just so full of experience and joy and excitement. You can really tell your passion for the craft, but also just the immense knowledge that you have gained through your research and experiences. It is just, oh gosh, I
Well,
could continue on.
There are now 58 Dick or Felix Francis books. So anyone that hasn't read one, if they start one and they like it, they'll be in books for a long time.
They will be.
Okay, so folks, there you go. There's the hint right there.
Yeah, there's the
go
big
out
sell.
as soon as we're done. Go find some. Start with Felix's books. Since he was our guest. After you finish those, then you can go back and start with that. So now that's your assignment for this evening.
Well done, Jim. Thank you.
And we have Dark Horse is available wherever books are sold. It's got rave reviews across all platforms.
Yes.
A beautiful, beautiful cover with Felix's
Yes.
name very large and front and center. As we like to wrap up, Felix, we like to gauge from our guests, what are you being entertained by these days? I know you had mentioned before the show that while you are working on writing a book, you don't spend time reading, which that's something that definitely we can understand. But any, TV shows, movies that you've seen recently, podcasts?
I've been away for a couple of weeks, so I'm catching up on The Night Manager, which is based on John le Carré's books, and I love those. I've also been watching the UK version of The Traitors, which I know you now have in America.
We do.
And don't spoil it. I've
Nope.
still got a couple of episodes to go yet because I missed the end when I was away. But I watch a lot of documentaries, and I watch, but I do like. My wife loves watching murder mysteries, so I've been watching some of that. But the American series, they seem to go on forever. You have season after season and loads and loads
Yes.
of episodes. I know you need a good memory to write a book, but you need a good memory to watch the series as well, to try and remember what happened at the beginning. What amazes me is that Charles Dickens wrote a lot of his books as in installments, that they came out fortnightly. I mean, Great Expectations was written in a fortnightly. He was the soap opera of his time,
Yeah.
and I mean, to think that for me, I spend so much of my time going back and changing things. And if you published it in installments, you can't go back and change it.
Yeah.
So I have great admiration for Charles Dickens, who wrote some of the great murder mysteries. And I hope that I am building on the British reputation of
Yes.
creating murder mysteries that people want to read.
British
Absolutely.
murder mysteries are they're the top. They're the ones that
Yeah.
we always go back to. So it's again such an honor to be able to speak with you and to.
And an honor to meet you too.
Oh, well, thank
Sarah,
you.
and
And
you, Jess.
we very much appreciate you taking the time to be with us this afternoon and our audience members. And for folks who are watching us after the fact, feel free to leave your comments and make sure Dark Horse is available now where books are sold. And Felix, for folks that want to, follow along on what's next, know when you have another book out, is there a website that you share updates on, or any ways that folks stay connected or in the know about what's going on in your world?
At the moment, no, not at the next book. The book. I can tell you that the book is called The Chase, and it involves the art world, and it'll be out in September, and provided I get it finished by the 1st of April, which is my deadline day. As I said to you earlier, who in the publishers thought that was funny, I don't know, but and it's going okay at the moment. I'm well over halfway, working hard every day, and that will be out in September, and it's called The Chase, and I better get back to it.
Yes, well, we
Mark your
don't want
calendars,
to.
folks.
Yeah, we don't want to hold you up, but we're very much looking forward to it. And of course, Felix, you are welcome back here anytime to share your stories and the challenges that you encounter while you're writing and your process. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate it.
Well,
And
can I say thank you to you, and also thank you to everyone who's watching.
Yes.
And thank you especially to all those who read my books. I'm very grateful, and may you go on doing so.
wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We are wrapping up for this episode of A Bookish Moment. We do have a new show coming to you next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. We'll be chatting with mystery author Chris Abernathy. He writes a very unique mystery series that is told from the point of a cat. So that will be a fun chat for us to have here. But until then,
is the cat called Felix?
I don't believe so, but
No, unfortunately not.
well,
I
and
was
so
called.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was nicknamed Felix the cat when I was at school.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm actually allergic to cats, which is
that
not funny not so funny when your name is Felix, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I will say my sister does have a cat named Felix. So you have brought to the forefront. It's a great name. It's a very wonderful, wonderful name, and we're so honored that you were here today with us. We thank you for being here. To our wonderful viewers, thank you. Until we see you guys next time, stay bookish, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.